Good afternoon again. My name is Wael Mukhtar. I'm the Director of School of Engineering. It's my pleasure to come and start this forum, learning from industry how to do our job. This is really great. We talk to practicing engineers and tell us, this is maybe a better way to do it. And also for the topic for today, how to actually mentor a student in your site as well. So this forum is very informative for us. Really appreciate all of you taking the time in August on a Friday, the afternoon, to come and stay with us instead of doing so many other options that you can do out there. So I really appreciate the panelists and the Career Center, Chris and the team for coordinating it. Very excited about the opportunity to have this deep discussion about the topic. And this is my thank you for being long-time partner and coming here to see how we can do it better for us and from your side. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Babbitt. Like Dr. Mokhtar, thank you for being here. We're really excited to have our panelists here today to give some insight into good supervisory practices. We have, the current winner, former winner employers here, so they're going to provide some great advice, and a future upcoming one, I'm sure, right? Winner. We're going to go through a series of prompts and then hopefully have some time at the end for the audience to ask some questions. We only have about an hour, and I would hope you'd stay afterwards to go to the senior design projects that will be at the Design Center. So without further ado, I will introduce our moderator for today, Ms. Rachel Gray from Hello West Michigan. She is the executive director there and has graciously agreed to lead this event. So I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Thank you, Chris, and good afternoon, everyone. As Chris said, my name is Rachel Gray, and I'm the Executive Director of Hello West Michigan. So we work very closely with the Grand Valley Career Center and many college career centers on internships because we are all about promoting West Michigan as a great place to live and work. And so our organization really wants to make sure that our region has the workforce of tomorrow. And what a fantastic time to discover our region during a summer internship. So we get heavily involved in summer internships. I know we're just winding down the season now, so this event is a great way to celebrate the end of the summer intern season. So happy to be here with employers who have top internship programs. If you're thinking, man, I would love to be honored at next year's luncheon, I want to know how I can make my company a great organization for interns, make it attractive for the future workforce. These are the folks that you want to hear from. So I will go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Chris Geikema. I'm an engineer 3 at Dorner Works as a part of the Secure Technologies group. I'm also a graduate of Grand Valley. I graduated in 2016 with an electrical engineering degree and have been working at Dorner Works ever since.
Awesome, thank you. Ryan?
I'm Ryan Lillibridge. I'm a husband and a dad to 3 boys. That's my first profession. And then I get the privilege of working at Mission Design and Automation as the Director of Business Development. So also a Grand Valley alum, so happy and honored to be here talking about something that we're passionate about as we grow in the next generations. So thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Brett?
Hello, my name is Brett Gorby. I work for Magna Mirrors. I've been with Magna, this is my 19th year. I'm a product engineering manager for our outside mirrors and actuators group. My initial 14 years with Magna, I was up in the manufacturing plant in Newaygo, where I had several roles, starting with project engineer, manufacturing engineer. I did some program management and then senior program management. In 2018, I had the privilege to be able to move down to our craft engineering center as a product engineering manager for the outside door handle group. And then most recently, this past February, I moved over to the outside mirrors and actuators. So yeah, very happy to be here. Thanks everybody for coming, and excited to talk to you all.
Awesome. So I know first we're going to talk about the structure of the program, and I know Magna, as our award winner this year, wanted to give you an opportunity to talk more about your program. So to take it easy on Brett today, we have a video.
I started my career at Magna as a GVSU co-op student 30 years ago. I've gone from student to project engineer to director, and now to my current role as VP of engineering. And my time at Magna has been very rewarding. And I like to put that back into the students that we bring through the program to help them learn about engineering and develop as future engineers.
With the co-op program, you get 3 great semesters of learning on the job, learning hands-on, getting you prepared and getting you in a better mindset going into the field. Gives you a leg up, absolutely.
You're exposed to this environment, you see how things go, you see how projects are created and how they're finished and the process in between. And I think that's something that's invaluable, and that's why Grand Valley is amazing to offer this opportunity for their students.
The education kind of gives you that foundational knowledge that you need to do certain tasks, but then coming here you get more hands-on experience and kind of like get to build on that knowledge that you get in the classroom.
What I'm most proud of in the co-op program at Magna is that we develop students. We make it a priority. So each of the students that comes through the program here at Magna and GVSU can look to a mentor that's helped them along the way developing their engineering career.
I get to work a lot with not only the interns, but with the engineers because they want you to succeed. And I know that I'll be able to go back to class and then be able to come back after. And I know those connections are still going to be there. When I become an engineer, I have the experience that I need to be able to be successful.
They genuinely care about me as a person and about my learning, especially as a co-op. And I felt like my responsibilities, they've been real projects, meaningful work that the company needs. Gives you a perspective on why you're learning the things that you're learning. And that's been really valuable for me.
I think it's awesome that you're able to get experience in the field. Magna's not just an automotive company, they're innovative and forward thinking, and that's what pushed me to want to work for Magna in my co-op and in my engineering career.
Thank you for that. Brett, anything you want to add about the structure of your program at Magna?
Yeah, as you heard in the video, I mean, we've been doing this a long time, over 25 years at least. And we participate with the co-op rotation. That's the majority of our students, but we also do internships as well. So any of the students that may be co-op, we also invite them to come to Magna and be an intern so they can get familiar with the products and the processes and the people, so that when they do start their co-op, obviously they roll right into that. So we do that. The other thing we do with the job fair, we pay special attention to interviewing all the candidates with the actual managers that will be managing them, because what we feel we're successful because we spend the time interviewing the students and we understand what their strengths are and maybe where their weaknesses are, and we are able to determine which group fits them the best and which group they're going to be most successful in. So I think that's a big reason why we have a very large co-op program, and it's been very successful.
Thank you. Ryan, tell us more about the structure of your program at Mission.
Sure. At Mission, our program's a little bit younger. It's maybe 3 years in, so it's been a couple co-op students started this summer, really picked up. We really wanted to foster that program and grow that program. The value is there for both the students and for the company, and we want to be part of that in the community and grow that up. So I think for us, the kind of the structure, if we were to talk about that, we're just starting into it. So moving into the practice interviews. Now I have a history of being in a co-op program for much longer than that and working with a company that has experience doing that on a larger scale. So getting involved in the practice interviews, like you said, and part of that is in those interviews you can help coach already at that point. So that's exciting to be able to help at that point and then set up for the career fair coming up in August and those times, and then sit down with the students, make time for those students and spend time getting to know them and then making your selection. Then we bring them in for the 3 rotations. We move them through different departments and different areas of the company. One of the reasons we do that is that's cross-training for the employee, which makes them a better employee, but also exposes them to a larger portion of the business. So they get to see more of the business. Ideally, they stay. If they go, it's still good. They train and they learn other areas of it. So.
Great. And Chris, how about you at DornerWorks? What is the structure of your program?
So the structure of our program is fairly similar to the structure that we have at DornerWorks. So at DornerWorks, we have different groups. For example, I'm a part of the Secure Technologies group, but we also have an IoT and medical group, a core services group, an FPGA group, and others. So when we bring in interns, they're assigned to a group that they're going to work with at least for their first co-op rotation. And during that rotation, they'll be brought up to speed with what the focus of that group is, the type of work that they'll be doing, and how, and really it's a good opportunity for them to figure out how well they enjoy working as a part of that group. And if they really flourish and succeed, then the next co-op rotation, if they want to come back, which ideally they do, they'll be a part of the same group. And then they can kind of continue on where they left off. But sometimes you get into a position where a co-op was assigned to a group where they really just didn't mesh and they click. And the fact that we have the different groups at DornerWorks allows us to sometimes transfer that co-op to a different group where maybe their interests are more aligned with that group's philosophies and work, and allow them to flourish during their next few co-op rotations.
Fantastic. So, one of the things that Hello West Michigan teaches in our employer internship training sessions is really getting executive buy-in. And I think, whenever I've worked with executives in the past, at least, they always want to know what is the why of the program? Why are we going to do this? Why are we going to invest in it? So, Chris, start us off. What is the why of DornerWorks' program?
Well, I think a lot of the full-time engineers at DornerWorks went through an internship or a co-op program of some sort. So you don't really need a lot of buy-in from the engineers because they've all been through it. They all know the positives and that being a co-op brings. So really that's the big why is we've been through it and now we want to give back to the next generation of engineers.
Great. Brian?
Thank you. I agree with you, Chris. I think some of it is the why for us is a lot of it is from our CEO down. People have experienced the co-op programs, have understood that growing the next generation of engineers is important, not only for the engineers, but also for the company. So I think there's some benefits for the company, obviously, that come along with it, but the why do you do it is because it's valuable to the community, it's valuable to the profession, and we know that if we raise the water level for everybody gets better. And I think that giving more senior engineers the ability to mentor younger students also gives them maybe a little bit different purpose when they come in to work every day. So there's a lot of value to your current employees or more experienced employees that really enjoy doing that mentorship and enjoy teaching the next generation, also learning from them when they need to learn how to use Excel or some new OneNote thing, or Teams meetings comes on, or if you need to go remote right away, those college students really do mentor the other direction sometimes. So I think the why behind it, there's many of them, but the why is there's a lot of purpose there and a lot of value for your employees to have a bigger purpose than maybe what they do every day by training and mentoring across the company. And I see a lot of value in that. We had our intern presentations actually just this morning, and looking around the room and looking at the leaders and the managers that had those co-op students and just the look on their face of satisfaction and enjoyment when they're looking at the person that they were able to teach and train and mentor and say, I learned these things. I had to go through this rough spot and this was really tough, but so-and-so told me these things and guided me along the way. They're both smiling, right? So they both take away from that a sense of satisfaction and a sense of value. So I think that's a big part of the why.
I can definitely echo that feeling of that proud feeling. Our interns in our office had their presentations on Monday, and I supervise our summer program, and they all did great. So that was an amazing feeling. And I think as employers, as we think about how to engage our current workforce, something like that level of satisfaction, I mean, that's one thing that as employers we're all trying to achieve with all levels of our workers. So I think mentoring a student is a great way to achieve that. Brett, how about you?
We have a lot of the similar answers as these two guys here, but yeah, definitely is a source to fill our pipeline, right? If you start as an intern in a co-op and you dedicate several years to the company, then obviously it's a good trial run, right? It's a good trial run for the student to know if this is what they want to do and this is the company they want to be with. But on the other side, it's good for us too, because then we are able to see their work ethic. We're able to see how they perform in groups and how they do independent work. So it's a long interview basically. So we're able to take advantage of that and through those experiences, we're able to, keep our pipeline full and, train our next generation engineers on the job while they're still getting education. So to me, that's the biggest benefit. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done with engineering, mock-ups, prototypes, testing, things like that. So those are perfect opportunities for the students and co-ops to not only learn more about engineering, but learn about our product, our business, so that when they do hire into Magna, they hit the ground running and there's no learning curve left there. So that's a really big benefit. And again, it does help our other engineers, our junior engineers that we use as job shadows, right? They can give work to the interns and co-ops, they can mentor them and help them. So not only is it helping the student, but as a manager, I'm able to see my engineers working with the students to see, does this person have potential to make the next step as a leader in Magna? So for me, it's double benefit because I get to fill the pipeline with the students, but then I also can see who in my group is a potential leader that can rise to the next level when I need that. So, and I think the last thing I'll say is just, like I said, it's a long interview. It's a good way for the company to understand the students' work ethic and their morals and their how responsible they are, stuff like that. So it's just all those details wrapped up allow us to keep our pipeline full of engineers and good talent, and not to mention strengthen our relationship with GVSU. So
Thank you, Brett.
Yep.
So that was kind of the overarching why of your programs. Delve a little bit deeper for me now. Talk to me about some specific examples of highlights from your programs. Doesn't have to be from this year, it could be from years past, but tell me a little bit about some of the real wins that you've had with interns that, again, just sort of reinforce why you keep doing your programs. Chris?
Well, I feel like my first answer is a little short compared to you guys. So hopefully this one doesn't spiel out too long. Personally, I've been at DornerWorks for 6 years. I believe 3 of them I have been mentoring co-ops. So unlike the 2 gentlemen sitting next to me, I'm not at management level. I'm still one of those more junior engineers that you can see. So really, for some of the highlights for me is just seeing the engineers that you've worked with as co-ops really come back semester after their education semester, and you can figure out and you can see what they've brought back to Grand Valley and what they've brought back to DornerWorks for their next rotation. So you see their skill levels increase. You can hear them. They're a lot more confident when they come back, and they're always very excited to come back. So specifically, you see people that have they struggle with something during their first semester, and then they just throughout that semester, their second semester, they come back and they work hard, and you can see the improvement. And then when they do their presentations, you kind of see the culmination of everything that they've learned. And really, once they get to the third semester, or their third rotation through, they're really treated as full-time engineers. They're often working on real-life projects with real implications. They're on customer calls, and you can see that confidence bloom and their first time talking to a customer, how nervous they are. And then by the time it's their 6th or 7th meeting, they're just talking like, there is an old friend. So really just seeing how they grow is a personal highlight for me.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, I would echo that, Chris, and I think both of you guys touched on it. One of the biggest highlights I see from the program and kind of the wins, we'll say, is the leadership process for the co-ops and how that aids in the development of your future leaders. So, Chris, you're saying you're not in management yet, those kind of things, but I wouldn't discredit that because I came up through those ranks as well. But I think what allowed me to do that was having mentors along the way. Sometimes the next mentor in line is the guy that just graduated the year before you that's helping you out. And I think what that allows them to do is by having a co-op program where you can have people that are moving into leadership oversee your co-op student or your intern, that gives them training in leadership process, gives them training in kind of constructive feedback. There's all these things that they have to learn that they can learn together with the co-op by mentoring and being the manager of that co-op, that then brings them to the next level of management as they move. So maybe they start managing a co-op and it's, hey, right now you're a designer, you've been here for 2 years, but we want you to oversee what the co-op's gonna do over the next semester, and you're responsible for what that is. So you get to see how they handle that, how they manage that, but then they also have to learn through those struggles of delegation and how does that work. And I thought I told them to do this, and I came out here and when I looked at what was done, well, by tomorrow we gotta fix that because the customer's coming in. So there's different things and struggles that I think the co-op program allows you to have. And just those wins of watching people able to progress through that, and then those previous co-ops as they mature in their management style and mature through that process, watching them grow into the future leaders of the company and what that becomes and how they lead through that. And I think that's a big win for the overall program. But there's little wins every day that are exciting. I don't want to forget those because there's wins where someone designs something, builder comes in, says, hey, I want to show you something. Go out on the floor with a co-op student, said, hey, maybe we should make this different next time. It doesn't fit together, and I'm gonna need you to fix it. So there's those wins that day where it may feel like a fall or a loss if you fall off your bike, but you get back up, the co-op student fixes their mistake, and they come back the next day having learned something very tangible and a lesson of maybe you don't put a counterbore there, or you gotta check your thread pitches, or all these tangible lessons that are small wins along the way that you won't get out of a book. So I think there's just a ton of wins that we could talk about for a long time, but that's a couple of them.
Thank you. Brett?
I would say one of our biggest highlights is the fact that, I talked about building the pipeline previously. Through the co-op program, we typically hire 70% or more of the students that come through our doors. To me, I think that's a very big highlight because obviously it's, something's going right and we are, successfully seeking out the right types of engineers and students to help with that pipeline. We currently have 15 co-op students full-time, and then we also have 15 that are part-time. So we're working with 30 different interns over 6 different groups. And one of the biggest things that I enjoy seeing is that the interns, no matter what group you're in, they work together across those different groups. And just seeing them learn, right? When they first walk in the door, the learning curve is quite large, but then after we go through the training and things start making sense and the light bulb goes on, it's really nice to see them branch out and actually work in other groups and assist with other projects and just see the development and their learning and how fast they do that. And another highlight I'd like to touch on too is, because of that cross-pollination of the different groups, it's very nice when other managers come up to you and say, hey, so-and-so, your co-op did this and it was very, very helpful and you did a great job. That just makes you feel really proud and very happy that, you're doing things right. So, in GVSU, they prepare their students right out of school. Even at their first rotation of co-op or internship, these students do hit the ground running. So that's a very good highlight of the whole program. And one of my most favorite things is what we're going to do today is go over and see the senior projects. We work with the team, have meetings every week, sometimes twice a week. But just to watch them grow and design and develop and start understanding what it means to manage a project or develop a timeline, those types of things are really cool to me, being a former program manager. But yeah, it's really exciting to see their projects, see their new ideas come to light. And I feel like as a management group, we do a good job of challenging some of the decisions they make, so that it's not just, oh, this is good enough, let's move forward. It's, well, why did you pick that? Or why didn't you think of this? Or why didn't you do it this way? And I think that level of involvement allows them to think deeper and ultimately come up with a better solution to make a better product. So these last couple of years, we've done senior projects that are test equipment we use in the lab, every day, every month. And I really enjoy that because I like to see from the start to finish, right? They have a concept design, development, and then build, and then presentation. So to me, that's one of my most favorite things about the whole co-op system.
Brett, can I jump in on it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just curious with your system like that, because I see the cross-pollination between different departments, because
Yep.
we co-ops in different groups, and they do because they start at the same time, and we foster that partnership kind of between them. We do have a little bit of a cross-department. They tie the departments together a little bit. So I'm just curious on your side with a much bigger program.
Yep.
If you see, because you hire 70% of those and you have them cross-pollinated across departments as they mature, do they maintain those relationships and keep you from creating silos, right? Sometimes you
Oh,
create
absolutely.
silos.
Our co-ops and interns, whatever department they're hired into, that is typically the department they stay in. But that doesn't mean they're in a silo, because we collaborate very well amongst all the different groups. We have design, advanced product development, inside mirrors, outside mirrors, electronics. So even though they're different groups, no matter what product we're working on, each one of those groups is going to have a hand in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
But then your co-op knows a co-op.
Exactly.
They start at the same time in a different group, right? So
right. So that transfer of knowledge and that teamwork and everything it just starts from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah.
I love the learning that happens, even on the panel. So, of course, with any win, you always have challenges. You always have teachable moments.
Yep.
Especially when I'm chatting with employers who have never hosted students before. I think that's their biggest fear is what are the what ifs that come along with having students in your workplace, having interns, having co-op students. And so, talk to us a little bit about maybe some of the challenges that you've encountered with your students and how you handle those. Chris?
Yeah, so one of the things that I mentioned in the structure of our program is since we have different groups at Dorner Works, there's always a possibility that an intern or a co-op isn't going to be the right fit for the type of work that you're doing. For example, our secure technologies groups works exclusively with software, but if you hire on an intern or a co-op who doesn't really enjoy doing software development and they'd much rather do hardware development, you can get into a situation where while the intern they're extremely smart, Grand Valley prepares their students well, you can tell they're not passionate about what they're doing and they're not going to enjoy their time. So for me personally, that was the biggest challenge, was mentoring a co-op student who you could tell he didn't really want to be there because he'd rather be doing the type of work that other groups were doing. And luckily, since you have 3 different co-op rotations, you can move them to a different group the next time. And then I talked to him his second rotation, and he was very happy with what he was doing, and he was really enjoying himself. So that was one of the challenges that I faced. But the other thing is that I'm working at Dorner Works, but I did not go through the Dorner Works. I was not a co-op at Dorner Works. I co-opted at a different place. So my first co-op rotation, there were so many questions specific to the program that I just did not have good answers for. So it almost felt like my role as a mentor was just pointing him to people who would better answer the question for him. So that was kind of a challenge for me. But as we get different co-ops and do different mentorships, you slowly build up those answers over time to where you can be a better mentor and learn from those experiences.
Thank you. Brian?
I think one challenge can be getting started if you don't have a program yet. Maybe you think you need to be able to do it perfect or have to have everything answered. Really, it's just getting started. Get your first co-op student. It's not going to be perfect. There's always time to get better. And I think learning from each time, there's gaps we see each time we go through with our co-ops when they're done, that they tell us things that we could do better. So we see challenges along the ways of, I wish I would have rotated through this, or I got to work here. Some of the common ones you hear, or man, I wish I had a little bit more training before I jumped right into it. What are the other ones that I hear often? Connecting right away. So sometimes you want to make sure you set those connections up, but hearing those lessons and getting that feedback from them and hearing those challenges is important and lets you continually evolve that program and grow it to be successful. So as each semester comes through, you get to try again and do better next time. But yeah, there's a lot of challenges along that you have to learn as you're growing the program. And then I think another one is training the managers of the co-ops and letting them learn through. So teaching them to be vulnerable with their co-ops and work through that management practice of delegation or feedback and when to step in. So those are challenges that we see too, is it's not always with the co-op. Co-ops come in very well prepared from Grand Valley. Really appreciate that. But it's sometimes just taking that next person that maybe was a co-op a year ago and you're stretching them beyond where they're comfortable with. So letting them learn through that process. Challenges can arise with that communication sometimes, and it's always about communication and talking. So it's just having another mentor ahead of that person that can come alongside and help.
We're going to talk more about that in a minute. Brett, I want to hear from you. What are some of the challenges that you've encountered, and how did you handle them?
I'd say one of the challenges we face every rotation is the transfer of knowledge between the students. The outgoing, incoming, you have projects that are going on constantly, and there's literally a cutoff, right, for the rotation. So that is probably the one big issue, and we're never going to get rid of it. So what we do is we talk to our students, and the new students, we ask if they could, start working a week earlier, right? Because usually there's a week gap between when school's out and when they have to start. Then we talk to our current students and say, is it possible if you do 1 week after? So we're trying to establish a 2 to 3 week window where the new students and the current students can actually work together, and the handoff of the projects and the status of where they're at gets handed off from the person directly doing the work. So, like I said, that's one that's always going to be an issue that we'll have to deal with, but using that technique has really helped us. And the other thing too, I would say is, just making sure they stay busy, right? Because if you have a student that runs out of work, then their opinion of their job and maybe even the company starts to maybe degrade, right? If nobody wants to stand around twiddling their thumbs. So what we do is we implement shared worksheets where all the engineers have access to a Teams channel where we can keep a to-do list. So all the interns have access to that list. All the engineers put all their tasks on that list. So if the intern or student finishes a project, they go back to that list and then they pick another one. So they can be self-motivated and self-sustaining as long as we keep giving them the projects on that list. So that has helped out a lot. And then also, like I mentioned before, just to keep them busy, right? We do share them across groups. We allow them to do some validation testing, some model shop work, some things that are above and beyond the work that we normally do within our group. So, but yeah, just keeping them busy, making sure that they feel like the work is important and they're working on real world problems, real world solutions, which they all are. Just helps them stay involved and stay busy so that they enjoy their time and learn a lot.
So, Brett, I absolutely love that point about the wrap-up of the interns and helping them transfer that knowledge between one class to another. I think especially for a supervisor, when an intern comes in and they don't know where to start, it can sometimes feel like you babysit that intern all day.
Yes.
And especially for new supervisors, that can be very difficult. But then all of a sudden, the end of the internship is here, and a lot of times that wrap-up gets forgotten. And so making sure that you schedule time for that is such a great tip. We definitely do the same. So I want to jump ahead a little bit. So Ryan, you mentioned this, and Chris as well, but really the idea around your internship supervisors, your co-op supervisors, the mentors, there is as much a component of building that piece of the program as there is building the work for the interns themselves. Ryan, you talk a little bit about encouraging your co-op managers to be vulnerable. Tell us, what are some other things you coach your supervisors to do?
Sure. I guess one thing I would like to say is just in West Michigan with the companies here that are supporting the universities the way they are, it seems like we have a really good, just being around the country and other places, a good place to build and develop leadership through the university and through the companies, just that partnership. And I think that starts with the managers too, right? And being able to teach through those processes of, like you mentioned, vulnerability. I think what we're looking for there is you have someone's son, you have someone's daughter that's been entrusted to your company to work for you, and they're going to spend a lot of their time with you. So how do you foster that well? Sometimes that is, yes, you get a three rotation interview. Sometimes during that interview, they learn where you're going on the bus, or where the company bus is going. Maybe that company bus is going to Chicago and they want to go to Denver. So your manager's job is to help them maybe get where they're going, even if it's not on your bus. So working through some of those and having that feedback with them, you have to be vulnerable enough with them and with each other so they tell you those kind of things. So I think that's really important. And then you have to be vulnerable enough with each other to establish that trust with one another, to have feedback go both directions. So I think that feedback is very important. You have to be close and you have to be able to talk about it. So feedback on the positives each day, what went well, and then feedback on the other things. It can be like, hey man, you can't roll your eyes in the meeting. I've had this before. You're rolling your eyes inadvertently in a meeting and maybe you didn't know it, but as someone that cares about you and you want to move forward, you just pissed off the 3 other people in the meeting and one of them came and talked to me and you're really sending the wrong signals. So I think you have to be close and you have to be vulnerable with one another, but same goes back for that leader to take feedback from the co-op. And that has to start with at the top too, being close enough to those mentors or those co-op managers to have those conversations too. Say, hey, with your co-op, I've noticed these things. Let's talk about them. Or like, man, you are, I'll say kicking butt. Kicking butt on these things, and I really appreciate the way you just took this person in your wing. I saw you out there on the machine. I saw you pause and take time with a controls engineer and walk them through why what they did maybe wasn't the right thing to do, or walk them through kind of this new best practice or process. They didn't crash the robots. You're doing great. Thank you for all those things. So I think it's constant, it's ever changing, and it's always just being attentive to it. And it's a journey along the way. So I don't know, hopefully that answers some of that.
Absolutely. Chris, you talked a little bit about, the challenge for you in that you are mentoring students at DornerWorks, but you didn't go through that program yourself. So talk to me a little bit about, the first time you did that and kind of what you've learned along the way of the 3 years that you've been doing it.
Yeah, so I guess one of the first questions that I got is the way we bill our hours at DornerWorks, and the interns have 1/3 billable. And the intern came up to me and asked, he's like, how do I bill my hours on this project? And I was like, I have no idea. I bill 100% of my hours. I was like, I know you're supposed to bill 1/3, but I don't know how that looks like. I don't actually know how you're supposed to fill out your timesheet for that. So that was one of the things where I had to go to, one of our engineers who went through the DornerWorks co-op program and ask him specifically, what does that look like? How do you fill out your timesheet? So, as time goes on, you kind of hear some of those questions, you kind of hear some of the same questions, and you can kind of have answers prepared based on the history of the previous co-ops that you've mentored. And, it's just kind of, you're always learning, you're always figuring out what the best way to mentor that co-op is. And specifically at DornerWorks, when we have a lot of engineers mentoring co-ops, most of them, they might not have gone through the DornerWorks co-op program, but they went through an internship or a co-op experience. And so they're, I would say most or all of the engineers are very passionate about getting the new generation, the new co-ops up to speed, and really just, we all love working at DornerWorks, so just kind of sharing that experience with the co-ops, because, happy employees work well, happy co-ops work well, and it's just, like Ryan, you said earlier, rising tide raises all boats, so when everyone has a good experience, everyone enjoys working together, and it's just an all-around good environment to be in.
Thank you. Brett, anything to add around how you prepare your internship supervisors, your co-op supervisors?
Yeah, I'd say we take more of like a systematic approach, right? We have certain new hire checklists that we have to go through. So, doing that allows the supervisor to, go through and make sure all the necessary items are transferred to the new student, all the knowledge. We base that off some of our training matrices we have for our permanent employees. So not only do they get all the basic HR stuff, but they get a lot of training on the engineering tools that we use and things like that, our different processes. So that definitely helps. And then just encouraging the supervisor to just take a walk out and just kind of see what's going on. Because, you know, given a task and then expecting it to be done the right way, it goes a lot better when you go out and just see what's going on, see the environment they're working in, making sure that they have the correct tools to be successful, right? If they can't do what you're asking because they don't have the right tools, then that's just going to lead to frustration and the project being late, and then the supervisor may be upset because it's not done in time. So just, you know, whenever you get a 5-minute break, walk back, see what the interns are doing, offer your help, offer assistance. But yeah, I think that's really just getting out there and getting involved, I think, is the best way to mentor and learn as a young supervisor.
Thank you. So, you know, I think the adage, if you build it, they will come, is not necessarily true when it comes to talent acquisition. I'm sure your HR folks and talent acquisition have told that to you. So tell me a little bit about how you attract students to your program. What do you do to get those applications, the applicant flow? You know, obviously you guys have great programs and they're very structured, but how do you actually get the applicants to get good interns in the door? Brett, do you want to start?
Yes, I'll start. First of all, we treat the co-op program very seriously, just like it's our customer, right? Because all the great talent we get and we continue to keep the pipeline full. We attend any event we can with GVSU and the students. You know, the earlier you can get into students and introduce yourself and have some sort of relationship, the more beneficial it is for both. You know, as a management team, we meet every month and we talk about these strategies. We talk about what's coming up next month. What are we going to do for the job fair? What are we going to do for practice interviews? I mean, we put together a plan throughout the year and meet every month to see how we're executing that plan and what can we do differently and any new ideas. But doing that puts a strong focus on, you know, staying ahead of the curve and making sure that you are the company that the students are most interested in. Just like the video we put together right there. We just did that on Monday. But it's such a great recruiting tool because you can send it out on social media and the students can look at it as they see it, and it's just really cool, right? So yeah, it's just getting in front of the students, participating in the GVSU events, and just starting that relationship as early as possible.
Ryan?
Sure. I think the most important thing we do is take good care of the co-ops that we have and make sure they have a positive experience through the process. So building a close relationship with them, making sure we're fostering what they want to learn, and they're also helping us out through the process. The most valuable marketing we do is their word of mouth when they go back to school the next semester. So we can't beat the word of mouth marketing that takes place, and the best way we do that is to care about them personally, care about their career and where they're heading, and take care of them. So that's the number one thing that we do. What that also creates for us is the marketing assets, I'll call them, or content, where you have the videos that you can post online, or you did an interview with one of the co-ops when they're leaving and you take a snippet of that and put it on LinkedIn. So you can have some of the marketing content come out of that, but that content will feel disingenuous if someone's just posing for it, right? So you want to have that relationship set up well, the program set up well, and fostering that process through. And I'm completely jealous of your guys' website now that I looked it up. So we'll do some more work on ours, but yeah, maybe an awesome website too helps.
Actually, I was going to comment on Chris. DoornerWorks has a great college careers page. What I like about it is that it's there all the time, even if the openings are not open at that moment. Talk to us a little bit more about what DoornerWorks does to attract students to your program.
Yeah, like Ryan was saying, word of mouth is the best marketing that you can get. You know, you're not going to put up a billboard on 131 and saying, "Hey, DoornerWorks needs interns." You know, you have a limited applicant pool. And by treating your co-ops right and putting them on real world projects where their work matters and they're enjoying what they're doing and they're getting this whole host of experiences that they might not get elsewhere, what that does is it fosters an environment where they go back to Grand Valley and they say, "Oh, I did these awesome things at DoornerWorks." And I mean, I knew that. When I was at Grand Valley going through this co-op experience, you know, there was 5 DornerWorks co-ops, and I wasn't one of them, and I heard all the stuff that they were doing, and I was like, oh man, that sounds awesome. And so just making sure that they're happy and making sure that they're doing productive and real, like, work that matters gives you that applicant pool. And then by going to the GVSU career fairs and really putting your name out there, that's when you get those applicants, and you can say, hey, check out our website, check out this cool stuff that we're doing, because, you know, I don't think a lot of a lot of people will just know, oh yeah, DornerWorks, I know that company. You know, there's not a whole lot of people know who we are just in the general population. So all those things combined really gets us that applicant pool to where people really want to work for us.
Thank you. You know, one thing I think that you all mentioned was that you're all highly involved with GVSU. And so if you are an employer who has trouble with applicant pool, or you're thinking about starting a program, if you don't know Chris yet, or someone at the GVSU Career Center, make sure that you introduce yourself, because they have a roadmap to get you started, to help you make those connections with the students, and they can help you lay it out. So I think that's definitely a fantastic suggestion. Ryan, to mention yours, actually, we just assigned our marketing intern that job of doing testimonials with our current intern class. So that's actually an intern project, is to get testimonials with the current class of interns before they go. That's the trick. You got to get it before they walk out the door. And then just real quick, lastly, before we get to questions from the audience, which we will have time for, talk to me a little bit about the differences that you have seen between your co-op students now and your co-op students pre-pandemic. I know that I've worked with a lot of employers who have put the pause on their internship and student programs during the pandemic, whether that was for financial reasons or even just capacity reasons with their HR department. HR was very overworked during the pandemic and still are. But you know, I see a lot of companies who are hesitant to bring their interns back. So talk to me a little bit about some differences that you've noticed in your students, kind of the students you have now and during the pandemic versus maybe the ones you had in 2018 or 2019. Chris?
What I've noticed is they're just smarter. Like every time you get a new rotation of students through, they all know more than, it feels like they know way more than what I knew going in, and maybe that's just imposter syndrome. But you know, it feels like maybe just the curriculum at Grand Valley is being even more tailored towards co-op and real life, real work experiences. But at DornerWorks, we still have our co-ops working in the office. It gives us a good opportunity to figure out how they work well in groups, while still a lot of the full-time engineers at DornerWorks are either fully remote or a hybrid work schedule where you're only in once or twice a week. So, you know, that mixture gives the co-ops and interns a good experience of, hey, you know, this is how you're going to use Teams and remote meetings and, you know, interacting with other engineers, you know, remotely versus in the office. But really the big difference pre and post pandemic, they're just smarter. Everyone we bring in is way smarter than I was, I feel like.
I love it. Ryan?
I think, second what you said, Chris, I think the program does get better every year, just through the feedback loops. So really appreciate the tuning that in and being active and listening to that, right? But pre-pandemic student versus post-pandemic student, I don't know that I notice a ton of differences in the students and how they work. One thing I do notice is that the pandemic drove the adoption of Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, all those things. We're in office most of the time working on essential go fast type projects for medical and others. But we had some people remote, it became more flexible. So the process is much more flexible. There are times where you work from home and it's possible you can do that. Hey, my son has COVID and I'm going to be quarantined for this amount of time, but I'm just sitting here twiddling my thumbs, I want to work. So I think what we saw is that the entire company had to move into this remote working process and use Teams for communication or chat for communication or some type of new communication protocol, more text. And what happened is now the older generations that weren't doing that before had to do it. It was part of their job. And what that did was allowed those people to have a new communication method that the co-op students already knew how to use. they're familiar with that type of communication. They're familiar with Zoom calls and videos and using Slate and all those things. So they have, or Slack, they have all those tools. See, I'm too old to even know what they're called anymore, but there's all those tools that they know how to use, and they use well, and they use them daily. Sometimes it's jump up, have a conversation. Other times it's chat on Teams because the guy's somewhere on the floor. And all those tools now pulled in those generations that weren't familiar with them and allows us a different dynamic of communication. So I think the co-ops actually help facilitate that in certain ways by mentoring other people on, hey, here's how you use it. And what do you mean? My team meeting's not working. Why is my mic not working? I can't get the TV set up. All the things that go along with it. The co-ops actually help facilitate that and train the rest of the team. So.
Absolutely. I can definitely echo that in our office.
Yeah.
Brett, how about you?
So most of our work for our students is hands-on. So even during the pandemic, we had them in safely, of course, mask and everything. But what it forced us to do, it forced us to understand that in the event that they couldn't be in the building, we had to give them the tools so that they could work remotely. Obviously, with engineering, there's a lot of paperwork to be done. So, I mean, if the opportunity arose, we'd be able to, they take their laptop home and hook up through VPN and can do some different paperwork while they're at home and still contributing to the company. So that was the big one, just making sure they had that capability to work remotely. And as these guys said, of course, they all know how to use the technology and the teams and all that stuff, and they did help train everybody else, so that was good. It was kind of a go-fast training because we were forced all to learn it really fast. So that was helpful. And I think the other thing that I've noticed is the pandemic has made the students have to be more self-sufficient and more self-starting because, currently our work schedule is still the engineers come in 2 days a week and the other 3 are at home. So even though they have this large list of things to do, those students have to go out and get it done. And, previously when the pandemic was still going on, there was really nobody in the office. So, but all the work continued to get done. So I think they really adapted well, and they understood that they needed to take the resources they had and take the instruction they had and continue to do the work. And then also, just learn all those different forms of communication, whether it be a phone call, cell phone call, Teams chat, whatever. If they have any questions, they could efficiently and immediately get a hold of whatever engineer they needed to make sure the work continued. Because there's nothing worse than a student spending an hour trying to find somebody to talk to. So to me, those are the main ones that I see between the pre and post-pandemic students.
Thank you, Brett.
Yep.
Well, with that, we have a few minutes left here, and I would like to open it up for audience questions. So if you have a question, please stand and shout it out. So if I could go ahead and just repeat the question for the benefit of the recording. So looking for some clarification around the terms co-op versus intern. And then also, what are some methods for rotating co-ops through the program into different departments?
So I'll start. When I say co-op, it is the 3-semester rotation. And I guess when I say intern, it's everything else, right? Whether it's underclassmen or, we've dealt with students that may be a couple credits short to be allowed to have their co-op. We'll still have them as an intern, and then they'll start their co-op the next semester. So, we'll work with students in those situations, right? We understand sometimes the class load is a little heavy, and they maybe had to drop a class or whatever the circumstances are. But if they're not actively in a co-op, we call them interns, and if they are in the rotation, they are the co-op. And as far as rotation, like I said earlier, the student is within one of our 6 different groups, but every product we do and every project we do is very rarely that one of those groups is not involved with it somehow. So to me, that student gets the experience working on projects with the other groups, but at the same time, we all also tell them that Magna is a large company. Even within our small craft engineering facility, there's lots of different opportunities. So it's very well known that when they're working there, that if they want to pursue a different avenue or different group or even a different location, we are there to support them, and it's better that we keep them in the Magna family at a different location than just kind of letting them go and maybe they go to Mission. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of how we deal with that as well. I don't know if you guys want to say anything.
Yeah, if you want to send them our way. No, I would agree on co-op versus intern. That's the same terminology we use. Co-op is kind of a formalized rotation. Intern is anyone ahead, or a lot of other universities that don't have a program, and someone calls you up and says, hey, I want to do something this summer. That's what we would consider an intern. Rotation-wise, we intentionally want to move them through some different departments. So they'll go through maybe an applications into mechanical engineering or some time on the floor. And sometimes that's, we try to do the same rotation all the time, but other people have interest in different areas too. So we'll listen to those interests. Sometimes it may be mechanical, but they're really drawn to the robots and they want to get into controls. So we'll switch the rotations to move into that area. So it is a little bit based on what do they want to learn while they're there, and then what can we help facilitate. And then also we just kind of have a standard rotation that we've found to work well for exposure for a mechanical intern or a controls intern. Sometimes it's like, hey, you're going to go out on the mill with Mark and he's going to show you how to machine things because it's going to make a better designer. So you're going to do that for the next 2 weeks kind of thing. So.
Chris, anything you'd like to add about rotating co-ops through different departments?
Yeah, so at DornerWorks, we have the different groups, and most of the time, the co-ops just stay in one group throughout their 3 rotations. But really, those 3 rotations, you can often see a product go from its design through its implementation and delivery to a customer, and you get feedback from a customer there. So really the only times when we would shift a co-op between groups would be if they really wanted to try something out and there was an opening in that group for a new co-op, or they weren't the right fit for one group, so they got moved to another one.
So just to repeat the question there, how do you, as a younger manager, how do you facilitate kind of navigating between being a mentor versus a supervisor?
Yeah, absolutely. So at DornerWorks, we prefer to have the co-ops be on the same projects as their mentors. So then that way, at least for software projects with an agile process, there's since the co-op is on the same project as you can almost act like their direct supervisor, even if you aren't their program manager or their group manager, where you'll be the one delegating the tasks and working with them and following up to make sure that stuff's getting done and that they have a path forward. So really, even though it almost feels like you're more coworkers and it's you're not their program manager, you still can often act in that role for them, at least during their co-op rotation there.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Well, I did have a question that was submitted ahead of time. I know, Brett, I got the opportunity to ask you this question. Ryan or Chris, do either of you have your interns paid through a temp agency or your co-op students?
We don't.
No.
We pay them direct.
Yeah, we pay them.
Absolutely. I won't try to repeat all of that, but certainly if you need help deciding what you want to use for your nomenclature for your program, definitely chat with Chris and the Career Center and the College of Engineering, because the college can help you navigate that and kind of how you want to structure your program. So with that, I'd like to give a round of applause to our employers, Magna, Mission, and ThurnWorks. Thank you very much for spending a Friday afternoon with us. I'm going to let Chris here wrap you up.
Also, please give a round of applause to Rachel Gray for moderating the event here. And thank you for your attention here. We appreciate you being here and supporting us in this program. Next up, we have the Senior Design Project down at the Innovation Design Center, so please join us for that. And I'll be hanging around here for a little bit too. Maybe the panelists, if you have some individual questions and you want to come up and chat that way. So thank you again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you around the rest of the day.
Thank you.